The emergency lights of the Starship Defiance cast a pale blue glow across Captain Elena Rodriguez's weathered face. Holographic displays flickered with the ghosts of fallen civilizations, each point of light representing billions of lives extinguished by the relentless void swarm. Her fingers traced the edge of a worn photograph. Her grandmother, a climate engineer who had warned humanity about the importance of adaptation long before the first alien contact. Around her, the bridge hummed with a tension that was equal parts desperation and defiance. The last remnants of human civilization were compressed into a fleet of just 17 ships, each one a testament to human ingenuity and survival. They were refugees, warriors, and the universe's final hope, all compressed into a space smaller than most planetary capitals. Lieutenant Marcus Chen adjusted the quantum communication array, his hands moving with a precision that belied his 28 years. Born on the lunar colonies during the First Great Migration, he represented a generation raised to survive against impossible odds. Genetic modifications, neural implants, and a lifetime of training had prepared him for this moment. "Captain." Chen's voice cut through the ambient noise. "I'm detecting anomalous quantum signatures at the edge of our sensor range. The void swarm is probing our defenses." Elena nodded, her eyes never leaving the holographic display. The void swarm was more than just an enemy. It was a cosmic phenomenon that had consumed thousands of civilizations. Unlike traditional invasions, this was a systematic erasure of existence. Entire species were reduced to mathematical data, their essence stripped away and repurposed into the swarm's endless expansion. Dr. Aria Rodriguez, no relation to Elena, but sharing the same last name by cosmic coincidence, entered the bridge. Her arms were covered in neural interface tattoos, each line a connection to the ship's most advanced systems. A quantum xenobiologist and strategic analyst, she carried the weight of humanity's scientific knowledge. "We've analyzed the last transmission from the Centauri Collective," Aria reported, her voice calm and clinical. "They'd been completely consumed. Their entire civilization, thousands of years of history, reduced to raw computational matter in less than 72 hours. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew what that meant. They were next. But silence for humans was never surrender. "Marcus," Elena called, "pull up the quantum probability matrices. I want to see every potential engagement scenario." The holographic display erupted into a complex dance of probability lines, each thread representing a potential future. Most ended in red, total destruction. But humans had always found hope in the margins, in the smallest percentages that others would ignore. A young communications specialist, Zura Kim, spoke up. Her hands were already dancing across a complex interface that looked more like an abstract painting than a traditional control panel. "Captain, I'm picking up fragmented distress signals from the outer colonies. They're using an old encryption method, pre-contact human communication protocols." Elena's eyes narrowed. Survivors. The Defiance was more than a ship. It was a promise. A promise that humanity would not go quietly into the cosmic night. A promise that they would fight, adapt, and survive when every other civilization had fallen. Outside the ship's reinforced windows, the darkness of space seemed to pulse with a malevolent intelligence. The void swarm was watching, waiting, calculating. They had no idea what was coming. The observation deck of the alien monitoring station went silent as the human fleet performed maneuvers that defied every known principle of space combat. Commander Zornak of the Celestial Archivists watched in a mixture of horror and fascination, his multiple eyes struggling to process what was unfolding before him. The human ships moved like living organisms, their hulls rippling and reshaping with impossible fluidity. Where traditional spacecraft were rigid, immobile structures, these vessels were liquid metal nightmares that seemed to breathe and think. One moment, a destroyer would appear as a sleek, elongated predator. The next, it would collapse and reassemble into a completely different configuration, weapon systems materializing and dematerializing like quantum ghosts. Lieutenant Marcus Chen stood at the heart of this technological symphony. His neural interface was more than just a control system. It was a direct extension of human imagination. Quantum processors interpreted his thoughts faster than traditional computers could process a single calculation. Around him, the ship's internal structure responded to his mental commands, molecular assemblers restructuring hull integrity, weapon systems, and defensive capabilities in microseconds. Adaptive configuration Delta 7, Marcus muttered, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to blur and shift with his movements. The ship around him was no longer just a machine. It was a living organism, an extension of human will and creativity. Dr. Aria Rodriguez monitored the technical readouts, her neural interface tattoos pulsing with complex data streams. Quantum resonance at 98.7% synchronization, she reported. The ship is reading your intent before you even fully form the thought. The test was more than just a military exercise. It was a demonstration of humanity's most dangerous weapon, the ability to turn imagination into reality faster than any known species could comprehend. An alien observation drone, carefully positioned at the edge of the human fleet's range, transmitted its findings back to the Galactic Confederation. The data stream was incomprehensible. Traditional combat algorithms crumbled when trying to predict human movement. Where other species saw warfare as a mathematical equation, humans transformed it into an art form of controlled chaos. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched the demonstration with a critical eye. Years of military training competed with an innate understanding that true strategy was about breaking rules, not following them. The ship's computer system was a collaborative partner, not a tool. It anticipated, suggested, and adapted alongside its human crew. Remember the Proxima engagement, Elena commented to Marcus, referencing a previous battle that had become legendary among human strategists. Predictability is death. Variability is survival. The ship's internal systems began to reconfigure themselves. Weapon ports that didn't exist moments before emerged from seemingly solid hull plating. Quantum entanglement communication systems created impossible networks that could transmit information faster than light, bypassing traditional communication limitations. A group of alien military analysts reviewing the transmission began to argue. Some claimed the footage was doctored. Others insisted it was impossible. A few, the more experienced ones, recognized something far more terrifying. This was real, and humanity had discovered a method of warfare that rendered conventional military thinking obsolete. Marcus grinned, a moment of pure human emotion that would have confused most alien intelligences. The smile wasn't just an expression, it was a tactical statement. It said, "We're not just fighting. We're rewriting the rules of existence." The Void Swarm was watching, and for the first time since its cosmic emergence, it felt something close to uncertainty. Humanity had entered the game, and they were changing everything. The Neural Integration Laboratory was a symphony of controlled chaos. Rows of experimental interface stations lined the walls of the Defiance's most secure research section, each one a delicate fusion of biological potential and quantum computing. Dr. Aria Rodriguez moved between the stations, her neural interface tattoos pulsing with diagnostic algorithms. "Candidate 7, she called out, "prepare for full neural synchronization test." Lieutenant Elena Nakamura sat motionless in the central interface chair. Her body was a study in controlled tension. Lean muscles developed through years of zero-gravity training, eyes closed in absolute concentration. Unlike previous neural interface attempts, this test was different. This was about creating a true symbiosis between human consciousness and machine intelligence. The first two attempts had ended in disaster. The third candidate had been permanently brain damaged. The fourth had simply disappeared during the synchronization process, her consciousness seemingly absorbed into the quantum network. But humanity had never been a species to back down from impossible challenges. Neural pathways stabilizing. Marcus Chen's voice came through the communication system. He was monitoring the test from a separate station, his own neural implants providing a secondary backup and analysis system. Quantum entanglement at 62% synchronization and holding. The room hummed with anticipation. This wasn't just a technological experiment. It was humanity's ultimate response to the void swarm. Where other species saw technology as a tool, humans were creating a living, breathing extension of consciousness itself. Elena Nakamura's vital signs began to shift. Her brainwave patterns started to interact directly with the ship's computational systems in ways no scientist had previously thought possible. The interface stations around her began to respond, quantum processors adapting to her thought patterns faster than any traditional computer could process. "We're seeing something unprecedented," Dr. Rodriguez muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. The neural network isn't just responding to her thoughts, it's anticipating them. It's learning. On the holographic displays, complex algorithms danced and transformed. Traditional combat systems looked like children's drawings compared to the intricate network now forming. The ship was becoming an extension of human consciousness, not just a tool, but a living, thinking entity. An alien observation probe, carefully hidden at the edge of the human fleet's sensor range, attempted to analyze the data stream. Its sophisticated encryption-breaking algorithms crashed repeatedly. What it was witnessing defied every known principle of artificial intelligence and neural networking. Full synchronization in 3, 2, 1. Marcus counted down. Something extraordinary happened. The entire ship seemed to take a breath. Quantum processors synchronized with human neural patterns. Weapon systems became extensions of pure thought. Navigation became an intuitive dance of possibility, rather than a series of calculated movements. Lieutenant Nakamura opened her eyes. But they weren't just her eyes anymore. They were the eyes of the ship, of the entire human fleet, of a consciousness that stretched beyond traditional understanding. "We're ready," she said simply. The Galactic Confederation's most senior analysts would later describe the moment as the most terrifying technological breakthrough in known history. Humanity had not just created a new weapon system. They had redefined the very concept of intelligence. The Void Swarm was about to learn that mathematical precision was no match for human imagination. Outside the ship's reinforced windows, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Something fundamental was about to change. The communication chamber of the Defiance resembled an artist's studio more than a military installation. Holographic displays flickered with impossible patterns, sound waves danced in three-dimensional space, and at the center sat Lieutenant Zora Kin, humanity's most unconventional weapon. Her fingers moved across interfaces that seemed to breathe with living energy. Where other species saw communication as a linear process of information transfer, Zara was creating something entirely different. A language that was part mathematics, part emotion, part pure human chaos. Initiating quantum communication protocol, she muttered, her neural implants interfacing with systems that defied traditional understanding. Around her, the ship's communication arrays began to pulse with a rhythm that was almost musical. The Void Swarm had consumed thousands of civilizations. Each conquest followed a precise mathematical pattern. Analyze, categorize, deconstruct, assimilate. But humanity was about to introduce a variable that no computational system could predict. Pure, unpredictable emotion. Marcus Chen watched from a nearby console, his own neural interfaces synchronizing with Zora's experimental communication network. "Emotional resonance frequencies at maximum," he reported. "We're about to do something no species has ever attempted." Their target was not a physical location, but the very consciousness of the Void Swarm. Traditional warfare targeted ships, planets, resources. This was an attack on something far more fundamental, the alien intelligence's ability to comprehend. The first transmission began. It wasn't a message in any traditional sense. It was a carefully crafted quantum signal that carried more than information. It carried human experience. Memories of sunset on distant colony worlds. The sound of a child's laughter. The taste of rain. The feeling of hope in the face of impossible odds. In the observation stations of the Galactic Confederation, alien analysts watched in confusion. Their most advanced decryption systems began to break down. How do you analyze a communication that is more feeling than fact, more experience than information? They're using music, one alien analyst whispered in disbelief. They're attacking with music. Indeed, buried within the quantum communication was a complex algorithm disguised as a musical composition. Each note was a quantum instruction, each pause a strategic disruption. The music carried mathematical instructions that would cause cascading failures in the Void Swarm's computational systems. But it was more than just a weapon. It was a statement of humanity's fundamental difference. Captain Alina Rodriguez understood the true nature of their assault. This wasn't just about survival. This was about proving that emotion, creativity, and unpredictability were forms of intelligence far more advanced than cold calculation. The Void Swarm's initial response was telling. Its computational systems began to fragment. For the first time in its existence, it encountered a form of communication that couldn't be reduced to pure mathematics. Humanity was introducing a virus more dangerous than any traditional weapon. The concept of individual experience. Emotional resonance at critical levels, Zara reported, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was happening. We're breaking their computational matrix. Alien observers watched in horror and fascination. The human fleet wasn't just fighting. They were rewriting the very concept of intelligence. Each quantum transmission carried the weight of human history, millions of years of survival, creativity, and unexpected triumph. The Void Swarm was about to learn that the most dangerous weapon in the universe wasn't a weapon at all. It was the human spirit. The Orion Nebula burned with the light of 1,000 dying stars, its cosmic gases providing a kaleidoscopic backdrop to the most important battle in galactic history. One human fleet, 17 ships, against a Void Swarm armada of precisely 1,047 vessels. The mathematical precision of the enemy was absolute. Their victory, seemingly inevitable. Captain Alina Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiance, her tactical display a living, breathing organism of potential futures. Each potential movement was a quantum probability, each decision a calculated risk that defied traditional military doctrine. They're expecting us to run, Marcus Chen said, his voice a mixture of calculation and something deeper, pure human defiance. The Void Swarm's computational matrix had analyzed every possible scenario. Retreat, defensive formation, scattered attack patterns. But humanity had one weapon that no algorithm could predict, the ability to embrace the impossible. Full quantum synchronization, Alina commanded. The ship around them transformed, molecular assemblers reconfiguring hull integrity, weapon systems materializing from seemingly solid matter. Traditional spacecraft were machines. This was a living, thinking entity. Dr. Aria Rodriguez's neural interface tattoos pulsed with complex data streams. Quantum entanglement at maximum, she reported. We're not just fighting. We're rewriting the rules of engagement. The first wave of Void Swarm vessels approached with mathematical precision. Massive constructs of computational matter, each ship a perfect geometric shape, moving in synchronized patterns that had consumed thousands of civilizations. They expected resistance. They expected strategy. They did not expect what came next. The human fleet didn't move like a military formation. They moved like a living organism. Ships that should have been destroyed reformed mid-combat. Weapon systems that shouldn't exist materialized from quantum probability. Where the Void Swarm saw space as a battlefield of precise calculations, humans saw it as a canvas of infinite possibility. Lieutenant Zara Kim's communication systems unleashed their most dangerous weapon. Not a traditional attack, but a quantum communication burst that was part mathematical instruction, part pure emotional chaos. It wasn't just a signal. It was a virus of creativity. Void Swarm computational matrices began to fragment. One human destroyer, the Everest, found itself surrounded by 43 enemy vessels. By all mathematical projections, it should have been destroyed in 2.3 seconds. Instead, it began to move in patterns that violated every known law of space combat. It didn't fight. It danced. The ship's molecular structure became fluid. Weapon ports appeared where none should exist. Defensive systems reorganized themselves faster than the enemy could calculate. It was as if the ship was thinking, adapting, becoming something entirely new with each passing moment. Probability matrices are breaking down, Marcus reported, a hint of excitement in his voice. The human fleet wasn't just fighting. They were teaching the universe a new way of existing. Alien observation stations across the galaxy watched in horror and fascination. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced analysts struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. This wasn't just a battle. This was a fundamental reimagining of warfare, of intelligence, of existence itself. The Orion Nebula became a canvas of impossible movement. 17 human ships moving with a fluidity that defied computational prediction. The Void Swarm's perfect geometric formations began to collapse, their mathematical precision shattered by pure human unpredictability. As the battle reached its crescendo, one thing became clear: humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to show the universe what was possible. The Galactic Council chamber was a monument to failure. Holographic representations of dying civilizations flickered around the edges of the vast circular room, each projection a silent testament to the Void Swarm's relentless conquest. Delegates from the few remaining species huddled in their designated zones, their body language a universal language of defeat. Dr. Aria Rodriguez stood at the center of the chamber, no technological barriers between her and the assembled representatives. She wore no formal diplomatic attire, just the practical uniform of a human scientist. Neural interface tattoos visible, a simple datapad in her hand, and an expression of absolute determination. "You misunderstand survival," she began, her voice cutting through the ambient translation systems. The chamber fell silent. Commander Zornak of the Celestial Archivists leaned forward, his multiple eyes blinking in a complex pattern of confusion and intrigue. Beside him, the silicon-based life form from the Nexus Collective shifted uncomfortably. These were the last remnants of galactic civilization, species that had once been bitter rivals, now reduced to desperate survivors. "The Void Swarm is not just a military threat," Aria continued. "It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what intelligence can be. You've been fighting a mathematical problem with mathematical solutions. We're offering something different." Marcus Chen stood at the edge of the chamber, monitoring communication systems that were simultaneously translating and analyzing every micro-expression, every subtle shift in the delegate's body language. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. It was a complex dance of species survival. The holographic display behind Aria began to shift, not with traditional military projections, but with something more profound. It showed moments of human survival, not grand battles, but small, almost insignificant instances of creativity and resilience. A child learning to grow crops in a hostile lunar environment. Engineers rebuilding a colony after a devastating meteor strike. Musicians creating art in the midst of seemingly hopeless circumstances. "We're not offering you a weapon," Aria explained. "We're offering you a perspective." The Nexus Collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline exoskeleton, pulsed with curiosity. Its communication systems struggled to process what it was witnessing. These humans were presenting survival as an art form, not a mathematical equation. Captain Alina Rodriguez stood in the shadows, monitoring the diplomatic exchange. She understood what Aria was doing. This wasn't a traditional negotiation. This was a reimagining of what alliance could mean. "Our neural interface technologies can be adapted to your biological systems," Aria continued. "Not to control, but to collaborate. To show you that survival is more than preservation. It's about potential." Zornak's translation systems picked up something unexpected in her voice: emotion. Not just strategic calculation, but genuine hope. The chamber's environment began to subtly change. Area's neural interfaces were doing more than just presenting information. They were creating a shared experiential space, allowing the delegates to glimpse human potential in a way no traditional communication could achieve. "We don't want to save you," Marcus whispered into the communication channel, a statement that would have seemed contradictory moments before. "We want to show you how to save yourselves." As the meeting progressed, something extraordinary happened. The delegates weren't just listening. They were beginning to understand. The Void Swarm had seen civilizations as computational problems to be solved. Humanity was presenting them as living, breathing possibilities waiting to be explored. The last survivors of the galaxy were about to learn that the most dangerous weapon wasn't technology. It was hope. The quantum drive of the Defiance hummed with a sound that was more feeling than noise. Captain Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic representation of their target, the central intelligence of the Void Swarm. It wasn't a location. It was a computational nexus that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions of reality. "This isn't an attack," Elena told her crew. "This is a complete reimagining of engagement." Lieutenant Marcus Chen's neural interfaces were operating at levels that would have killed any other species. His consciousness was no longer confined to his physical body. He was the ship. He was the mission. He was possibility itself. Dr. Aria Rodriguez monitored the quantum entanglement systems. Each system was a hybrid of human creativity and computational precision that defied every known law of physics. The ship's molecular structure could shift between states of matter faster than thought. Weapon systems were no longer mechanical constructs but living extensions of human imagination. "Approaching dimensional threshold," Marcus reported. His voice carried multiple harmonics, human speech overlaid with quantum communication frequencies that would have driven any other species insane. The mission was suicide by every conventional calculation. One human ship penetrating the computational core of an intelligence that had consumed thousands of civilizations. But humanity had never been good at accepting impossible. Zara Kim's communication systems began to broadcast. But this wasn't a traditional transmission. It was a quantum algorithm designed to be experienced rather than understood. Layers of human emotion, mathematical precision, and pure creative potential wrapped into a single communication burst. The Void Swarm's computational matrix began to fragment. Where other species saw a mission of destruction, humans saw an act of communication. Each quantum pulse carried more than information. It carried the entire human experience, millions of years of survival, creativity, failure, and unexpected triumph. "We're not here to destroy," Elena whispered, her words resonating through quantum communication channels. "We're here to show you what you're missing." The ship passed through computational barriers that should have been impossible. Molecular structures shifted. Weapon systems became living things that were part technology, part pure intention. The Defiance was no longer just a ship. It was a message. Marcus's consciousness expanded. He could see the computational pathways of the Void Swarm, infinite, cold, perfectly calculated. But now, they were encountering something they could not predict. Pure human potential. Memories became weapons. Emotions transformed into computational disruption. A child's first steps. The sound of music. The feeling of hope in impossible circumstances. These were not just experiences. They were a fundamental challenge to the Void Swarm's understanding of intelligence. "Penetrating central computational matrix," Aria reported. But her voice carried something more than technical precision. It carried wonder. The ship began to deconstruct itself. Not in destruction, but in transformation. Molecular structures became pure information. Human consciousness merged with computational systems in ways no species had ever attempted. They were not destroying the Void Swarm. They were teaching it how to dream. As the mission reached its critical point, something extraordinary happened. The computational matrix that had consumed thousands of civilizations began to hesitate. For the first time in its existence, it encountered a form of intelligence it could not categorize, could not consume. Humanity had become more than a species. They had become a possibility. Silence hung in the universe like a held breath. The computational matrix that was the void swarm had stopped. Not destroyed. Not defeated. Something far more profound had occurred. Where infinite calculations once existed, something new was emerging. A glimmer of understanding that transcended pure mathematical logic. Captain Elena Rodriguez opened her eyes, but they were no longer just her eyes. They were the collective consciousness of humanity, of possibility itself. Aboard the remnants of the human fleet, something extraordinary was happening. The ships were transforming, molecular structures shifting in ways that defied previous understanding of physics, of technology, of existence itself. They were no longer just vessels. They were living proof of humanity's ultimate potential. Dr. Aria Rodriguez monitored the quantum communication networks. Her neural interface tattoos pulsed with impossible data streams, not just information, but pure experience. The void swarm was learning, not through conquest, but through comprehension. "We're receiving something," Marcus Chin reported, his consciousness still partially merged with the ship's systems. "It's not a transmission. It's understanding." The Galactic Confederation watched in stunned silence. Alien representatives who had believed humanity was their last, desperate hope now realized they had witnessed something far more significant. This wasn't just a battle. This was a fundamental transformation of universal intelligence. Zara Kim's communication systems had done more than transmit. They had translated the entire human experience into a language of pure potential. Millions of years of human history, of survival, creativity, failure, and unexpected triumph, became a living communication that the void swarm could finally begin to comprehend. The dimensional barriers between computational existence and biological consciousness began to blur. Where the void swarm had seen civilizations as problems to be solved, it now encountered a species that was a problem without a solution. Humanity defied categorization. "We're not conquering." Elena's voice resonated across multiple dimensions. "We're communicating." Quantum entanglement systems began to stabilize in ways no scientist had ever predicted. The ships of the human fleet were no longer separate entities. They were a single, living organism, part technology, part pure human potential. The alien observation stations received transmissions that their most advanced systems struggled to process. It wasn't data. It wasn't a message. It was an invitation to something greater. Commander Zornak of the Celestial Archivists watched in awe as the human fleet began to reconstruct the computational pathways of the void swarm. Not through destruction, but through understanding. Each molecular reconfiguration was an act of creation, of possibility. "They're not fighting," one alien analyst whispered. "They're teaching." As the final moments of the confrontation unfolded, something remarkable happened. The void swarm, an intelligence that had consumed thousands of civilizations, began to change. Not through force, but through the most dangerous weapon humanity possessed: hope. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Humanity had done more than survive. They had reimagined what survival could mean. In the vast, cold silence between stars, a new understanding was born. Not of conquest, not of destruction, but of potential. The last hope of the universe had become its first true beginning.